Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to Planet FPL. And today we're going to be previewing the Women's European Championships. I'm delighted to say our women's football correspondent, Lauren Harris, is with me. How are you, Lauren?
I'm very well, James. Thank you.
Good stuff. You're going to be in Switzerland, aren't you?
I am very excited. Uh, from Friday the 18th, so what are we, Tuesday? About 2.5 weeks to go. Going to a quarter-final, semi-final, and the final, where hopefully we will see England retain their crown.
We'll obviously be talking England in a bit. Can I just ask, are you slightly concerned that you get there and England might be out?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, group of death, so I might not even qualify. The quarter-final I'm going to, if we win the group, that's the game England will be in. If we don't win the group, but we get to a semi-final, then that's the semi-final I'm going to. So there is a strong chance I could not see England at all, but we have hope.
Yes, we certainly do. And listen, we have plenty of reason to be encouraged. Obviously, England going to the tournament as reigning European champions. Obviously, got to the last World Cup final as well, beaten by Spain, who are going to be really heavy favourites in this competition. In part as well because of the draw, which we'll talk about in a second. And Serena Weigmann's obviously won the last two European championships because was manager of the Netherlands side that won it in 2017 as well. Talk to me about this lopsided draw because I think most people on the outside would look at this and go, it's probably realistically six teams could probably win this tournament. Three of them are in England's group, including England. Two of them are in Germany's groups. Germany and Sweden are in Group C. So England likely to walk into one of them in the group in the quarterfinals if they make it as well. And then essentially from groups A and B, Spain look like they'll walk to a semi-final here. How have we ended up with such a lopsided draw?
Well, it was all done on the previous Nations League qualifying, and I think you've got teams like Norway who statistically are, a bit higher in the rankings, but actually, in reality, we've seen in the last few major tournaments that they aren't necessarily performing to that ranking that they've got. So I think it's really fortunate for Spain that they've ended up in this situation. And as you say, it's just really unfortunate for us that we've got, I think, quite possibly the hardest group that has ever happened in a women's Euros
I mean,
in
there is no
France.
doubt that England are in the group of death.
Yeah.
Very, very little doubt about that. Somebody from Group A has got a really strong chance here of potentially getting to semi-final, and I don't think it's harsh to say we wouldn't expect any of these teams to go on and win the competition. Norway have historical pedigree because the Scandinavian teams are originally going back to the 90s and the early noughties were some of the strongest in Europe, but Sweden are far stronger than Norway now. Many might remember England beating Norway 8-0
Yeah.
very emphatically at Brighton in the group stage of the last tournament. There'll be favourites in this group. Switzerland are the hosts, and the group's made up of Iceland and Finland. What can you tell us about these four teams involved in Group A?
Well, quite interestingly, three of them were in the same Nations League group, so they've all played each other. Other than Finland, they've all played each other, sort of in the last 6 months. So Switzerland, Norway, and Iceland were all in the same group. Finland were in the lower ranked sort of B group, so they had some easier fixtures leading up to the Euros. And there's been quite a few draws between these teams. So Norway and Iceland drew 1-1, 0-0. Norway beat Switzerland 2-1, 1-0, and Iceland had also in that group. They all had France, and Iceland have had some not too bad results against France. They lost 3-2 to France, and they lost 2-0. I think it really is a very wide open group. Personally, I can't see that Finland are going to be able to match the other three teams in terms of quality. Finland have got a player called Rantala, who's really important to them, that's come into the tournament with injuries. She is in the squad, but I think her ability to play through those three group matches is going to be really important to them. And if she can't, then I can't see how they're going to be able to pull off a shock, as you were. Um, Iceland, I think, quietly have been growing as a women's football nation. And I've actually In my predictions, predicted them to win the group. My predictions haven't always been amazing, so that might bite me in the bum. But Switzerland have got a few issues in that Ramona Bachmann, who is so important to them, scored 60 goals for them. She got an ACL injury earlier this month. It was announced that she obviously wouldn't be coming to the tournament, and she's really important to them in terms of them being able to create those 4 goals. And so I think her missing is a huge loss for Switzerland. Obviously, they're the hosts, and we saw in 2022 how important it can be to have the home crowd behind you. But I don't know if that will maybe turn into pressure for the Swiss team. And I think Norway are so hard to predict. They've got so much talent in their squad. You know, Guro Reiten, Frida Marnham, Caroline Graham Hansen. All 3 of those are outstanding players for their clubs. But for some reason, they just, as a nation, haven't seemed to be able to put that into practice. And so I think it is one of those groups that is impossible to call and could go many different ways.
It's interesting that I mean, the Norway men's team, we talk about that a lot, don't we? Haaland, Odegaard, Oscar Bob, Musa. There's loads of players they've got. And you think, how do they not regularly qualify? And obviously, Iceland has come into the psyche no less for obviously beating England in 2016 and getting to the quarterfinals of that men's tournament. That's quite remarkable for Iceland, though, because whether it's men's or women's football, the population of that country is still only 300,000. So, how
Yeah.
have they managed to grow? I think we know with many of the other nations where the growth comes from and the development in women's football. That's really impressive for Iceland, though. Have they got any clubs that have been doing well in Europe or anything?
Well, so the Icelandic League actually has been it's been quite popular in the past for players to go and play sort of players who can't break into WSL teams but are maybe too good for the lower leagues in England, as an example, have gone to Iceland to play. And that also can be said for Swedish leagues and Norwegian leagues, but the Icelandic League has been a popular league place to go to. Jonsdottir, their striker, she's very, very good. She's currently playing for Angel City in the NWSL. And I just think they're coming into this tournament with a lot of confidence. They played Serbia and they beat them 3-1 in a warm-up game, which they would have expected to win. But I think they'll be coming into the tournament knowing that Norway haven't beaten them in the Nations League, and they are very, very capable of, with this like sort of group they've got. I think they're all capable of beating Finland, and then obviously it's going to come down to the results
So you think there's a
between them.
chance the hosts might go out in this group then? I'm
Quite
guessing from
possible.
what you're saying. So you're going to
Yeah.
Switzerland, you're pissing them off before you even get there, Lauren. Yeah, is that correct?
I mean, to me, I don't mind. If they go through, great. If they go out, they can support England.
Get,
Um, yeah, it's
from the teams in Group B, can I ask? Obviously, Spain are huge favourites. They're pretty much as low as a price as you could imagine a team would be in a 4-team group stage of an international tournament of any format. Um, if Italy, Portugal, or Belgium were in Group A, they would all fancy to get through, wouldn't they?
yeah. I think the quality of those 3 teams makes that group really interesting, actually, because you would expect Spain to win all 3. I think it will be a shock if Spain don't win all 3. Um, and so it's going to make those games outside of the Spanish match really interesting. I think Italy have to be favourites ahead of Portugal and Belgium. Emma Hayes wrote a really good piece in the Guardian. She's writing for the Guardian for this tournament. She wrote a really good piece about how Italian football has quietly been gaining traction. Their league has been slowly getting better players, and I think personally, if I were going to choose between the 3, I think Italy may sneak second place. But Portugal and Belgium, they've had both of them have had some absolute thumpings, but at the same time, they've been able to pull off some great results. So, for
Well,
example,
Belgium have got a recent victory against England in the Nations League, haven't
yeah,
they?
yeah, and I think it's worth saying that that English side was missing some key players, and it was a poor performance. But that just shows, what they can do on their day. Belgium did beat Portugal 3-0 recently, so maybe that doesn't bode
Portugal
well
were
for
heavily beaten recently by England as well.
6-0 England, 7-1 Spain. So
Mm.
yeah, they do have the capability of letting quite a few goals in, but they've got a great talent, Kika Nazareth, who may not be back for the first game again. She's sort of been injured leading up to the tournament, but if they can get her playing, I think if she misses the Spain game, you expect to lose the Spain game as an opening game anyway. So if they can get her playing against Italy and Belgium, that could be a real boost for them.
The draw obviously helps the Spanish massively here. I mean, would almost be biggest shock of the tournament. It would be a bigger shock for Spain not to make the semi-finals and England going out of the group to give you a little bit of kind of perspective in terms of the way the draws worked out here. Would Spain be rightly favourites anyway, even if say they'd landed in the group of death? Are they as strong as the team that won the World Cup?
Yes, yeah. I think if anyone predicts this tournament and tells you they don't think Spain are going to win it, then they're lying to you. They are the best team, and you have to be realistic about it. Um, we have got, as sort of English hat on, we have got the hope in that we have beaten them this calendar year in the
Yep.
Nations League. Um, but they've got so much talent. I mean, when I was looking at, obviously, we're going to come on to the fantasy aspect of it a little bit later on. When I was looking at fantasy assets for Spain, they're a little bit like Man City in that they've got so much talent that some players you're thinking, are they going to start? But even if they're not going to start, they're so good that that they're worth investing in.
Uh,
I think Spain's squad. Sorry, go on.
no, no, no. Please carry on. I'll make my point in a sec.
I was just going to say I think Spain's squad as a whole is so strong. They've got such good attacking talent. They're very astute defensively. Um, they will score for fun, and I think they will suffocate teams. And I think we may have an upper hand on Germany, who I think are another team that obviously we'll come on to in a second. But I think another team that could do really well in this tournament. I think we've got an upper hand on Germany in that we've obviously played them twice in the Nations League, and we've had a chance to sort of tactically see what we can do against them. But like you say, they're going to get to the semi-finals. If they don't get to the semi-finals, then that will be the biggest shock in the last decade. There's no chance on earth that they don't get to the semi-final.
Nico, clip that.
and
I think you're
then
right
when
though.
they,
It means it's almost impossible because we'd even said before we started recording, we said, look, who knows? Maybe they could drop points against Italy in the group stage, for example. But no matter what they do, still going to walk into one of them teams from Group A in the
yeah,
quarterfinals as long as we finish in the top two. And we're saying that
yeah,
the teams in Group B are actually stronger than in Group A as well. So yeah, it's almost impossible to
I
see
think,
them not
and
making the
also
semi.
obviously the news has come out about Bonmati. She's back with the squad, and obviously hope that she is
So
she
did
is
she get admitted to hospital with an illness?
viral meningitis.
Wow.
And so you think surely that is so extreme that she wouldn't be able to recover so quick that she's back with the squad, but be ready to play on Thursday. I'd be surprised if she plays on Thursday. They don't need to risk her. So
Well,
yes,
I mean,
she's a
in theory
Ballon
here,
d'Or winner.
they've got 4 games to build up to 2 important games.
Well,
That's
exactly.
almost how this feels. So I could totally understand. Maybe again, if they'd have been in a really tough group, they might have made a decision maybe not to take her because building her in. Whereas in these games, it'd probably be 3-4 nil up in a few of the games, and they could introduce her. I should imagine she's
Exactly.
obviously so important to them. I watched Lauren the game that England lost to Spain in Espanyol. I
Mm-hmm.
watched all of the game. And there was a few takeaways from it. Firstly, was that Spain gave England a chance. Their high line was as extreme as anything I'd seen in women's football in that first half. And England scored a brilliant goal where they worked through and played through lines, and Alessia Russo got away and scored to give England the lead. And I did think that if England was sensible, that was always on to get them
Yeah,
over the top quite quickly. But in the second half, what commonly happens to England teams when they've got the lead is you just get deeper and deeper and
yeah,
deeper, and we stop pressing. And then the quality they've got on the ball, once they'd equalised, it was like an inevitability, it felt like, that they were the better side and they'd go on and win from there. So
yeah,
yeah, I think significantly stronger, unfortunately. But there were glimmers there that make me think, yes, a side like England, who do have good ball carriers and do have good pace in the side, can expose it if we defend properly and don't end up too deep. Because if you're too deep, it's too far then to break on them in transition. Also, do we take anything from the fact that Arsenal beat Barcelona in the Champions League final, as much as I'm loath to say it? Because after Barcelona had pretty much destroyed Chelsea in the semi final, no one was giving Arsenal a chance. And yet they did it and they beat Barcelona 1-0. And I know Barcelona have players from all across Europe. But is there anything that can be taken away as a positive for that? Because there's obviously so many Arsenal players in this England squad as well.
yeah. I mean, I think the players actually, England players have spoken on media days since the final about how when the Arsenal players came back into the squad, how they all got a lift. And I don't think, I think if that was a men, England men's, and you had rival teams, like Chelsea women were vying for that final and they lost. I think you'd maybe have a bit more competitiveness and maybe not be happy for your teammates because obviously you wanted to be there. But I think actually it sounds like it gave the squad a massive lift. And yeah, psychologically, we've won that huge match against the Spanish team. Obviously, like you said, like Mariona Caldente, part of that Arsenal team, she's part of the Spanish team. She's such an important player for Spain. But a lot of that Spanish squad were in the Barcelona team. So, I mean, obviously they've suffered a huge loss in that Champions League final, but they're still World Cup champions. They've they've still been
Would
winning.
it be fair to say that Barcelona are stronger than Spain? Because so
Um,
much of the Spanish team plays for them anyway, and obviously Barcelona have the
yeah,
pick of so many great players from around Europe as well. If there was a mythical matchup between Barcelona and Spain, would Barcelona be
yeah,
stronger?
I think so. Yeah, I mean you've got players like Esme Brooks from the Netherlands, Eva Pahor who's playing for Poland. Um, can't think of the top of my head, but maybe the only player that I would say, Mariona Caldente, obviously plays for Spain, doesn't play for Barcelona. She's such a good player. I've seen her at the Emirates a few times this season. She's so good on the ball. But yeah, I think Barcelona would beat Spain. And I was at Stamford Bridge watching the semi final against Chelsea, and they just demolished them. They just
Hmm.
obliterated them. And Chelsea are the best team in England consistently for the last few years. Chelsea have been so good, and they made them look rubbish. And so I remember straight after that game thinking, when Arsenal won their semi final, thinking this Arsenal not got a chance in hell of beating Barcelona. It's really nice for them to get to a final. It'd be a great occasion. Um, Great for English women's football that we've made a Champions League final again. And the fact that they actually went on to win it, I think it was a tactical masterclass, to be honest, by Reddy Slager, the Arsenal manager. And hopefully Russo and Mead and Williamson and co can take that into the Euros.
He's doing punditry, I think, for one of the channels. I read because the tournament's being shown, all the games being shown on the BBC and the on ITV in the UK. I think he's doing punditry, maybe for BBC. Don't quote me on that, but I think he's going to
Who's
be
that? Sorry,
involved. The Arsenal manager.
Jonas Eideball.
No, is it Renee Sagers? Is it?
Yeah, she's a woman.
Oh, she's a woman, right?
Yeah,
Thanks. I mean, Renee, I probably should have got that, shouldn't I? Right, Nico's on holiday, so I can't clip that bit out. Sorry. No one. Eiderveld's obviously gone, hasn't he? He kept having bust ups with Emma Hayes, didn't she? She's doing punditry. I know definitely for
she is. Yeah,
ITV, be a welcome guest to have back because she's great to listen to.
Yeah,
Just on that, in terms of the quality of Barcelona, I'm just thinking about that in the back of my mind. Is there a bit of an evolution if we take a step back here in terms of women's football, where I think maybe if we go back to, I don't know, 10, 20 years, that international football was the strongest form of women's football? Is it now club football? Certainly in terms of in Europe.
yeah. Club football is definitely more competitive.
But it's not
I heard
always
a
been that way, is it?
no, no, no. I mean, I heard a
No.
really cool stat the other day, actually, which I think shows the progression of women's football in such a short space of time. So, two Euro tournaments cycles ago, 2017, there were no fully competitive women's football leagues in the whole of Europe.
Yeah.
So, you had the odd clubs that were professional. Now, there are more than 3,000 players across Europe who are fully professional. And I think that shows how quick that progression has been. Um, there are still some big gulfs internationally, um, but I think on a club level, like you say, it's becoming far more competitive, and
You,
all of the leagues are getting better.
you'll remember probably better than I will. What was it? Arsenal won the Champions League before. Do you remember what year it was?
15 years. It was. I'm sure it was
Late
15 years.
2000s, I think, I want to say.
2010.
Okay. Clayton and I did a piece on the Clayton and James show. We looked at the teams that Arsenal had beaten in that competition en route. And with all due
Mm,
respect, it was teams that many of you wouldn't have heard of. It was a lot of Scandinavian teams who were something
yeah,
like Gothenburg or Malmo. They would just be women's teams. Whereas obviously now, Arsenal have beaten Real Madrid, Lyon, and Barcelona to win this competition. Like that's a major shift in change in terms of the professionalism of women's football throughout Europe. And it probably leads in as well why nations now like Spain growing obviously in say Italy probably doing better now maybe than the likes of Norway who were once a powerhouse perhaps in women's football. Talking of Sweden, they're in Germany's group. Sweden lost to England in the semis of the last Euros at Bramall Lane. Have they got any chance of finishing above Germany in Group C, do you think?
I would expect both of those teams to beat Denmark and Poland. I think Denmark and Poland. Um, I mean, Poland should lose all three games. And I don't think Denmark are in their strongest position at the moment. They lost 6-1 to Sweden earlier in the month. So that kind of shows you where they are at. I think it's obviously massively going to come down to that last game in the group. So Germany and Sweden play each other last. I, I personally think Germany will beat them, not because Sweden aren't capable, but because I really think Germany are on fire. And if anyone is going to beat Spain in this tournament, I think it will be Germany.
And Denmark's last match were well beaten by Sweden.
Yeah, thrashed, thrashed. They
Is
also
that an
lost 3-0
anomaly
to
that
Italy.
Sweden beat them 6-1? Is that an anomaly?
Well, if you look at their results, they beat Wales both in both games, which would be expected. They lost 3-0 to Italy, um, and they lost 2-1 to Sweden in their reverse fixture. So maybe it's an anomaly, but that's from what I've seen. I haven't been able to find that they've played any sort of warm up games for the Euros. That's the last game they've played. So going into a tournament in a group with a team that you know you've just lost 6-1 to, psychologically that's really quite difficult for them.
Yeah, and Poland have the young lady up front who scored an absurd amount of goals for Barcelona, hasn't she?
Pahor, yeah, she is sensational. I think it's a bit like though, if it's one player, there's only so much one player can do. The rest of the squad obviously aren't quite at her level.
Yeah, and this is their first appearance in the tournament, and actually they're the
Yeah,
rank outsiders from all the groups. I mean, you'd listed sort of prices going up towards 100 to 1 for them just to win the group, for example. Um,
yeah.
so they're obviously going to be rank outsiders. I probably wouldn't rule Denmark out of this, but yeah, Germany, Sweden should be the two strongest sides. I read Germany quite inexperienced at the back at the moment. Like they've still got good players, but with people like Alexandra Pop's not playing anymore. But defensively, they're quite inexperienced. Is that right?
They are, but they've got so you've got Rebecca Knack who she's kind of broken back into the German team. She's not young, but she joined City at the turn of the year, and she had a great season in the WSL with Man City, and she's managed to break back into the starting lineup for Germany. I think we saw. I went to the game at Wembley when we were 3-0 down quite early on, and that was quite scary, to be honest. And we managed to get back in the game quite quickly. I think we saw in that game how Germany can massively suffocate teams. They've got such pace, such attacking talent, but at the same time, they do have defensive frailties. Um, they haven't conceded that many goals though in qualifying and in their Nations League. They beat the Netherlands 4-0, which
Is impressive.
yeah, really impressive. They did concede against Scotland. Scotland aren't very good. So, yeah.
That's two nations you've pissed off now, mate.
Sorry, I'm gonna probably annoy more when we get to Wales as well. I think Germany will be too good for Sweden, personally.
Okay. Talk about Wales then, because they've landed with the mother of all draws. But they're not minnows, right? In the sense that clearly they are rank outsiders in England's group with France and Netherlands. But they're not pushovers, are they? They're not going to be easy to beat.
No, and I think their route to the Euros kind of showed that. Ireland obviously played in the last World Cup. They performed really well for sort of their ability in the World Cup, Ireland. And for Wales to go and beat them, that was a statement in itself. Um, they don't have, like we were talking about Poland have got Pahor. They haven't got like an amazing player. Jess Fishlock is very experienced, but she's quite old now. She will be a really important player for them. But what they have got is they've got a good average squad. Quite a few of their players play in the WSL. I was listening to a podcast the other day with a woman who works for UEFA. She's Welsh, but she's obviously involved quite a lot with the Welsh setup, and she was kind of talking about their team cohesion and how well they work together. And I think we've seen before in men's and women's football that you don't always have to be the best technically, but if you can get your tactics right and work well as a team, then obviously you give yourself a chance. And what they do as a team typically is they don't concede many goals. They did coincidentally concede 4 goals to Italy in a warm-up game, but generally, they only conceded 1 against Denmark. They drew with Sweden
Twice.
They conceded, yeah, twice. They don't concede. They're not going to be like Portugal and get thrashed.
Yeah.
Even though they're in that group of death. I hope for Wales that they, by the end of the group stages, they can say that they really did their best. I think if they lose every game by 1 or 2 goals, then that is a good tournament for them.
Probably on par. They'll want to get something, won't they? As long as it's not against England, we'd be quite happy with that, I should imagine.
They can beat
well.
the Netherlands if they want. That'd be fun.
Yeah, they've got plenty of experience in the squad that's used to playing in WSL and stuff. I wouldn't rule them out from giving, particularly England, a tough game potentially. Because I think as well, even if England play Wales last, don't they, in the group, and it might even be that Wales are eliminated by that point, possibly. But they're not going to throw in the towel against England. There'll be a real desire, no matter what the circumstance, to obviously get a result
Definitely.
in that game. Talk to me about the Dutch.
Um,
How strong are they or aren't they?
I don't think they're as strong as they were. I think they're kind of at a crossover where I think they've got some really good young talent coming up. So you've got Captain who broke into the Chelsea team this season, Esme Brutes who plays for Barcelona. But then you've got older players like Danielle van der Donk, who has been so important to them for so long. She recently signed for London City Lionesses from Lyon, and I think that shows, she was one of the best players for Lyon, and now she's joining a team that's been promoted to WSL. That kind of shows where she's at with her career. Spitzer, who was really good at the World Cup, sorry, she's sort of getting a bit older. And then, to me, their most important player, Viviana Miedema, she is still world class. She will still score them lots of goals, and I think her fitness levels whether she can stay fit for all 3 games is going to be really important for them. Um, when she doesn't play, they haven't had good performances in sort of the not too distant past. When she plays, she offers them so much more, and she's so clinical that without her, I think they will struggle to get out of the group. Um, but she's back. She scored 2 goals the other day in their warm up game, so it looks like she's fit and ready. I think,
They played a Welsh first though, right? So they might have the advantage of then, looking at England in game two and thinking that your draws here is okay. Um,
yeah,
they might even look at that, right? If they put good goals on the board, maybe against Wales, hypothetically, go into both the next 2 games thinking a draw is okay. Might even suit them the way that the group forms.
but you could look at it the other way. Wales first game of the tournament, fresh optimism.
Yep.
Maybe they pull off a shock against the Netherlands, and then the Netherlands walk into games against England and France, which you know we'll all be supporting the Welsh on Saturday.
The French, would it be fair to say they're a little bit of a myth in women's football? Never made a major final. Seems like it's inevitability that it will happen at some stage, but there's plenty of near misses and
Yeah,
underperformances. I think it's worth saying as well. And they underwhelmed at the last Euros
underperformances,
massively.
underperformances, and controversy. I think is what you would align with the French team. Um, and they've had a little bit of that leading into this tournament. But I think actually the controversy leading into this tournament is for the better for them. So their their new manager was Reynard, Hervé Reynard's assistant at the World Cup. He has dropped Wendy Reynard, who was their captain, sort of their leader for many years. La Sommer, who's their top goal scorer, leading top goal scorer, and Kenzie Darley, who again is a really was a really important established leader within their team. And his kind of reasoning for that was if you keep doing the same things, you're going to get the same results. And so he's looking at younger talent. And I think actually Serena Wiegman kind of did that a little bit in 2022 when she didn't bring Steph Houghton. And Steph Houghton had been so important to England for so many years, but it turned out that we didn't need her in that tournament, and that was the right decision. So I think that actually those decisions have kind of been questioned a bit when the squad came out, but it could well work to their benefit. I think at the moment they are in a really good phase where they've had some fantastic results. They've won all of their last 6 games. They played Brazil in their warm-up game, which I think will be really good for them because it was great for us to beat Jamaica 7-0 and have that confidence and players, been able to score goals, build up minutes and so on. But France have played a really tough game against Brazil, which, considering we're going into a group where they're going to have tough matches, and when you get out of the group, you then got even more tough matches. Um, I think France probably won't be tipped to win the tournament because of what they've done in the past. But if you look at their gradual progression, they got to a quarterfinal, then they got to a semi-final, and I think they could well get to a final if they avoid Spain's side of the draw. It really depends on who finishes where in our group.
Yeah, well, if England win their group, assuming Spain do, then you're looking at obviously a potential semi-final matchup there. But
Mm.
I don't think there's any bonus to finishing runners up because you probably just then walk into Germany in the last
Germany, yeah.
16 instead. So
But
you're gonna have to
if
beat one of
you,
these, at least one of it or two of
well,
these
yeah,
at some stage, basically, to win it.
I think if you finish runners up and you beat Germany, though, you do get an easier semi-final. So, um, but
In theory.
yeah, you
until
avoid
until
Spain for
Spain cock it up and finish second in the group as well.
the
Although we would know that before we go into the Wales
yeah,
game in the final game of the group. Wendy Renard's the one that was a really surprising one to
mm,
me because she was such a threat from centre back in terms from set plays was a real
yeah,
standout from the last Euros. That one really surprised me. There've been some surprise names left out of the England squad as well, or perhaps we should maybe say withdrawn
yeah.
from the England squad. Is all well, Lauren?
I think the Mary Earp situation is I think it's too difficult to comment on at the moment because I don't think we know the whole truth. I imagine in the next year or so, Mary Earps will probably um, release an autobiography, and maybe we'll find out things that we don't currently know. I think the crux of it is that Hannah Hampton was going to be number one, and you know, Earps maybe couldn't see herself as going to a tournament and not being number one. And I think people will have their own opinions on whether that is right or wrong. Um, I don't think that that's going to have impacted the squad going into the tournament. I think maybe obviously it's been what, maybe a month now since or a bit more since she made that announcement. And so I think initially there was the shock, and I'm sure that players within the squad will have been disappointed that she's not going to be there. But all of the signs that I saw on Sunday was that actually the squad is really positive and cohesive at the moment. And it kind of reminded me of how the squad seemed leading into the Euros in 22. I think the World Cup, actually, we had a few, not issues, but you had kind of more negativity going into the World Cup with Lee Williamson's ACL injury. I think I looked back at the squad the other day from the World Cup, and I think that this squad that we're going into the Euros with now is actually quite a bit stronger than that World Cup, and we got to a World Cup final then. So, that's kind of shows you where we're at. I think Millie Bright's obviously getting older, and she's prioritising her her body and her career. I think the fact that Greenwood is back, and personally, I would have wanted Greenwood to start over Bright anyway, if Bright was in the squad. I think that that's not necessarily too bad. I just think if Williamson or Greenwood do pick up an injury, then we are a bit maybe lighter than we would have been. Esme Morgan obviously came on for Greenwood on Sunday. She plays in an NWSL, formerly at Man City, and she is a good player, but she's not at the level of Greenwood and Williamson. So that's possibly something to.
They're still a strong pair in at centre back, though, aren't they? I mean,
Oh,
ultimately, it's
those
the
two
one
are, yeah,
position that you'd be quite comfortable playing someone for all 6 games. I think you're gonna the attacking
definitely,
players are gonna change substitution and stuff like that. If those two
yeah,
stay fit, it's not inconceivable that they would play 90 minutes in every game all through the tournament. I think.
yeah, definitely. And I think Greenwood would have come off on Sunday because she's just come back from injury and she doesn't need to play 90 minutes because it's friendly. So that wouldn't have been tactical. And what is so good about Williamson and Greenwood is they are both so composed, calm, great passers of the ball. And I think there are going to be moments, definitely in the group stages and hopefully in the knockouts if we get to them, where we're going to need that calmness and that composure at the back. There's going to be a lot of attacking talent, coming towards our goal, and I think there will be times where we need to sort of take this thing out of the game, calm it down. And Williamson and Greenwood are both amazing at doing that. For me, Greenwood was our player of the tournament at the World Cup. She was outstanding. So if she can get back to that, then that would be fantastic.
Talk us through if you can. Obviously, the openers against France Saturday night,
Yeah,
such a huge game to start with. Talk us
yeah.
through what you think the England lineup will be if you can.
So I personally think it would be the same as what Serena started on Sunday. So that's Hannah Hampton in goal. She started with Jess Carter, and when she brought Neve Charles on, who would be the obvious um, competition for left back, she didn't bring her on at left back. She brought her on at right back. She took off Bronze. Um, so I think that indicates that Carter is her first choice. So I think back four: Carter, Williamson, Greenwood, Bronze. Bronze is getting older. She has had injuries. So I think and given what Serena did on Sunday, I think it's possible that Neve Charles may be used at both right back and left back during the tournament to give players rests. Serena was kind of pushed on, why did you bring Charles on right back and not left back? And her point was, Neve Charles is right-footed. So, yes, she's been playing left back for Chelsea, but she's a right-footed player. There's no reason that she can't also slot in at right back. In the middle, I think Walsh and Stanway start every single game as long as they're fit. And then at the moment, I think Ella Toon will start. Her performance on Sunday has obviously massively helped that. She will have got a lot of confidence from her 2 goals, and I think generally her performance was really good. But I think the fitness of Lauren James probably means that she won't start. I think if you were to ask what is our best starting 11, James would be in it ahead of Toon. But I think given her fitness levels, when she came on Sunday, she was so good and she's so frightening for defenders that it's probably not the worst thing in the world if you're bringing Lauren James on against the French defence sort of on the 60th minute with Chloe Kelly, who also, has got pace to run at players. I think they are really two really great impact subs that can be options for us. And so I would say Hemp, Russo, and Mead will probably lead the line, given what we saw on Sunday.
That's strong. That's strong at the top end. I think of what you're saying there about the idea of potentially bringing the people likes of James and Kelly into the game as well. Like that's no bad thing, which so many
No,
teams in international tournaments over the years obsessed with starting with their best team, and then they
yeah,
fatigue 20 minutes to go, and every change you make is like you're making the team weaker and stuff. If you can bring players on that can re-energize it and keep it feeling as strong as it was, that's hugely beneficial. So I think you're probably right. It probably isn't a need. Obviously, England can't really afford to be losing on Saturday, but
no.
you probably isn't a need to overforce Lauren James to start. And then if you need her to get you out of a hole, she's most likely to do so. Does Serena Weigman want to use her essentially? Because obviously you can use her in a number of different roles.
I think given the makeup of our squad, I think that James will be best served playing as the 10. And I think if you put James in the 10, she's got Walsh and Stanway behind who are going to kind of do the dogged defensive work, and that leaves James free to just sort of roam. And we've seen it before. She will go onto the left, and if she goes onto the left, Hemp kind of pushes up front, and on the other side of me, there's loads of things they can do there. So yeah, I think if you put James in the middle and give her that free role, then it almost makes it even harder for defenders because you can't predict where is she going, what she's doing. She's all over the place. And when she's got the ball at her feet, she can create out of anything. So it's a really exciting prospect to have.
As you know, I'm a bit of a Kira Walsh fangirl. Is she still playing as well as she was at the last Euros?
Um, yes, I would say yes. She's obviously a little bit older. She moved to Chelsea because she wasn't getting starts regularly at Barcelona. But I think, as we've already said, that bar at Barcelona is so high that that doesn't that doesn't necessarily mean anything against Walsh. She played really well for Chelsea throughout the WSL season, and she is going to continue to be a really important player for England. I think at the World Cup, one thing that we saw though was when teams mark Walsh out of the game, that really kind of stunted us in some of those World Cup games. So I'm hoping that we've got a plan B and
What does that look
got
like? Is
plans
that
in
is that
place.
being a bit more direct or
Maybe pushing wider using Carter and Bronze. I mean, Carter was getting really high up the pitch on Sunday. Bronze always gets high up the pitch. You saw the goal, Carter assisting Bronze. And maybe Walsh dropping in sort of between Williamson and Greenwood and covering those fullbacks. Because if you've got the fullbacks pushing up, you can't then mark Walsh out of the game. So kind of going back out centre backs and going wide rather than, as we saw that iconic goal, Ella Toon against Germany. You maybe wouldn't get that sort of free ball from Walsh. You wouldn't get that opportunity if she's been marked out of the game, but you can sort of feed up pitch in other directions.
is it coming home?
My head says no. Um,
I'm delighted about that because you do have a good history of betting some shitty predictions on these podcasts, Lauren, which includes, I do note from the predictions you sent me, you don't even think England will win the group.
well, I think we will on Saturday. Like you said, we can't lose, so I think it will be a cautious opener. neither team will want to lose, and I could see that game being a draw. And I think if that game is a draw, it's going to come down to goal difference. Um, I think France will score more goals than us. I think we might end on the same points and then might score more goals.
What's the separator? Do we know? Is it head to head or goal difference? Do we know? For like every
Uh,
tournament, it's different.
well, if we finish on the same points and we've drawn against each other, then it's going to go to goals anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, not necessarily. I mean, there was an example in the Club World Cup where it didn't happen, but three teams could have finished on 5 points and
All right.
one on zero. And they were saying it would come down to goals scored in the draws against each other. So therefore, it's the head-to-head matches rather than the goals scored against the team on 0 points. So goals scored in the draws could even be definitive under that sort of weird circumstance. Now that, of course, would need three teams to finish level on points. But I guess even there is an
That could happen though.
there is even an example here. A different example would be that England, France, Netherlands all beat Wales and all beat each other,
Draw.
and they all finished on six
Or
points.
yeah,
As
yeah.
another example, that
And
happened in the
that
PSG
could
group,
happen,
didn't it?
couldn't it?
And Atletico
Yeah.
Madrid got done over because they lost 4-0 to PSG. So then that's the goal difference within your own head-to-head games. And so England might want to be a little bit mindful of that as well. I'll see if I can find that out. So you think I'd say you think based on your predictions, what I'm reading here that you sent me, you think Spain will win it. I think that's quite right. I can't really make an argument against that.
Yeah.
You've put Spain Germany as tipped up final. So you think we're losing to Germany in the quarterfinals? Is that right?
The pessimist in me says yes.
I'm delighted
Um,
with this, Lauren. Guys, get down the bookies, get your money on England. It's coming home, guys.
um, I mean, I think if you'd asked me a
It
couple of
is
months
head to
ago,
head is the first criteria, by the way. I just had a look.
oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So it's important not to lose to France then, definitely. Um, I think if you'd asked me a couple of months ago, I would have been more pessimistic. I think things have happened in the last couple of months that have maybe rejuvenated optimism. The fact that James, Stanway, Hemp, Greenwood are all back and fit is huge. Leah Williamson's form at the start of the season was a bit of a concern, but we saw in the Champions League final just how she's got back to her best. So that's not really a concern anymore. I think our squad is really strong. Um, if you look back at the 22 goals, if you think of iconic goals from that tournament, you've got Toon sort of lobbing the keeper, Chloe Kelly shirt off, waving it around, scoring the winner, and Alessia Russo's back heel.
Sitting
All
behind you on the
three are,
picture for the benefit of those on the YouTube
yeah,
can see,
yeah.
yeah.
Took this off the wall because it's up in my house. Yeah. I if you look at those three players, none of those three players started any matches in 2022. Serena Wiegman had the same starting lineup for the whole tournament. Russo, Kelly, too, did not start any games, and they scored three of the most important goals. Aggie Beaver Jones, Lauren James, or Toon, whoever is on the bench, and Chloe Kelly are such strong substitutes to be able to bring on. And I think if we're going to go the whole way, that's going to be the difference maker. If Lauren James could not get sent off, that'd be great. So it's those
I'm
types of
presuming
things.
this was that against was it Nigeria? I can't remember. Who was it against
Yes,
in the last
yes,
16?
yes, it was.
Have we seen any more indiscretions like that? I mean, it
Um,
reminded it's kind of a Rooney-esque moment, and Rooney would have the odd flashes.
yeah,
Is that like in her? Is it or
it is. I've seen it. I've seen it when she's been in a Chelsea shirt as well. But I think she will have learned a lot from that moment, though. She's not going to want to have that happen again. And I think she is that little bit more mature now. So hopefully she'll
one thing I want to have a whinge about actually? I'm sorry, this is the
go
kit.
for it.
I'm not happy with it.
The home kit.
I'm not happy with it at all.
What
It's,
don't you like about it?
it looks a bit French, and I know France normally play in blue, but it just looks like your absolute typical France away kit. But I feel a little bit better now because you're wearing an England shirt from 1982, which is styled a little bit similar with the blue and the red at
It
the
is
top.
quite similar, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's a bit more faded out the new one, isn't it? It's like
Has anyone said it looks a bit like a French kit?
I think some people said USA.
I
It said kind of
really.
I bet we're all the same. We've all got the same colours on our flags, haven't we? I
The
guess
away
England.
the away kit they wore at the weekend's great. Love that. That's really good.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I like the training kit. Training kit's nice. But I tell you what, the best kit that they've had was the Red Roses kit in the 2019 World Cup. It's like a red, as the name suggests, it's got roses on it. That was a great kit.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of red, as you well know. I know that you are. That's fair enough. Congratulations on Liverpool's title win.
Thank you very
I'll give
much.
you one outrageous prediction for the tournament. Whoever
Mm.
beats Spain will win it. That's how I feel about it, basically. Before we finish, let's talk a little bit of fantasy briefly. I understand there's two games we can play, right?
Yeah, so you've got the UEFA official game, which is for players that have played the Champions League game. It's very similar in that you can change captains each day. Um, you get free
UEFA is way
transfers.
more reliable than FIFA. I will tell you, people. I normally play UCL fantasy. It's reliable.
Um, you essentially get a wild card from the group stages to the quarterfinals, so you can really go all in on your group stage players. You also do get an actual wild card though that you can use at any point in the tournament. There's 3 points in the tournament that people have kind of looked at. Personally, I'm going to play it after match day one. The benefit of that is that England and France are obviously playing each other first, so I'm starting without any English and French players, and so obviously playing that wild card allows you to get in 6 players across those teams. Iceland are playing Finland first, and as we've already discussed, Finland are the weakest team in that group, so you can get some Iceland players in and then maybe get them out for the two more challenging fixtures. Portugal are playing Spain first, so you're definitely not going to invest in Portugal, but you may be interested in getting some of their players for the other two games.
I guess similar with the
And then
Dutch as well, a little bit maybe.
yeah, so you
Yeah.
can get the Dutch players for Wales and then get them out. The other group stage option is for match day three. So Sweden and Germany will play each other in the last game, and a lot of people, I'm sure, will have three German players, and the Swedish players will be popular too. So you can obviously get rid of those or some of them. England will be playing Wales, so if you haven't already got three English players, you can sort of choose who are the three best English players. And teams like Spain may already be through. You might have potential rotation headaches, so you can sort of deal with that. The only other option for wildcard may be the semi-final, but personally, I don't think you need to use the wildcard in the semi-final because you get 5 transfers beforehand. So if you're going, there's going to be a semi-final that's going to be predictable. Spain are going to get through.
Yeah.
You, I guess, if it's England versus Germany or France versus Germany, you might have 3 players go out there, but I don't think there's a need really to play that wild card in the semi.
I just
The
wonder
biggest,
if there's a strategy here to go Spanish defensive rather than the attacking players, just in terms of maybe picking out talisman from other nations. Because I think as it builds, you're gonna want to keep building your complement as much Spanish as possible. You may find you want
yeah,
blanket defensive, possibly.
I can definitely see the benefit in that. I think the only thing that would scare me personally is Spain score so many goals,
Yeah, it's true.
and so if you
Obviously.
haven't got the attacking players, you could like someone could easily score a hat trick, for example, and then
I
you
presume, like with UCL Fantasy, you can move your captain if you don't
yeah
like it from one day to the next day. So obviously,
yeah
the
you
first
can
match
yeah
day is played across 4 days. So in theory, if you can miss your captaincy 3 times, so you want to make sure essentially you've got a good captain option from each group, if you will, basically. So it might be you want Miedemar for the final one, for example, as an example, maybe on the final day. I was going to ask you, Lauren, in terms of who's the best like enablers to consider for this, but this is quite interesting. I've not known this to happen in a fantasy game that may well be quite popular for some time. We've got no pricing, and
no
there isn't any.
I think they probably made that decision to make it easier for people to access the game if you don't know much about women's football.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't mind it actually.
yeah, I think it's good. I think what we want is we want as many people playing. If you're playing fantasy football, you're taking interest in the tournament, and so obviously naturally that builds the the amount of people watching.
I think it's also okay to say a lot of people learn about players through fantasy formats, and that's
Yeah,
okay, right? And there'll be a lot of that
yeah,
here as well.
exactly. I think if your knowledge on women's football is slim, then the best advice I could give to you is choose three Spanish players. Defensively on a Batio is the
I'm
best
gonna
one.
have to give you a pay
Um,
rise, you know that.
attackers, Caldente, Pateas, Bon Mati when we know she's going to be back. Claudia Pina, you've got Esther, Afina. I think the problem with Spanish players is that they may not all start, but they could all still return. So I
Yeah,
think
I
as
get
long
that.
as you're picking three Spanish players, you're going to be fine. The German players, I think there are three outstanding players, and I think in the other fantasy format there are arguments to go against them. But in this format, where you can choose who you want, you've got Schuler, who's a striker, Buell, who is down as a midfielder, and Gwyn, defender. I wouldn't. I would just put those three into your team as a starting point and then build from there. Personally, um, I've got John's Dottir from Iceland. There are so many attacking options. Blackstenius, Gorelli from Italy, Miedemar, um, Pahor.
See,
Obviously,
I mean, you
the
will want
English
an
Liverpool
attacking
player.
player from someone in Group A because if they go off with the captaincy on the first day, I mean, you take a swing at, I
Yeah,
was going to say a differential, but probably most players from that group will be. You take a swing at something for the captaincy on the first day. If it gets hat trick, you just leave it, right?
yeah. So I mean, Norway, for example, Graham Hansen, Guru Reiten, Frida Marnham. All three of those, I think, will be popular captaincy options for the first day. Um, and then in Spain's group, you obviously want to avoid players playing Spain, but maybe targeting um, for Italy, Gio Liano. I hope I said that right. She's very good. She's got lots of goals and assists this season, so I've got her in my squad. I've currently got Casper Ironroad for the Netherlands, and the plan for me is to obviously play them against Wales and then bin them off.
Yeah, and
Um,
obviously, like the UCL fancy game as well, have your subs who are playing later in the week, and you can bring
yeah,
them on for your two or three worst scoring players, subject to how they do. Make sure you've got goalkeepers playing on different days is a given as well. Probably want
yeah,
goalkeepers different side of the drawers. So, oh no, it doesn't matter 'cause you're unlimited, aren't you? You just
yeah.
want
No,
goalkeepers
none of
playing
that
different
space.
days. Yeah, it's always only
Yeah,
it's only ever two games per day, isn't it? Am I right in saying that? I
yeah,
think
yeah.
all the way
Maximum.
there's never a day where we haven't got 12 p.m. kickoffs like in the Club World Cup or anything like that. I think most games are 5 and 8. Am I right in saying that,
Yeah,
Lauren?
yeah, 5 and 8 o'clock. I think the quarterfinals and the semis are all at 8, and then the finals at 5.
Yeah, the quarters are over 4 nights. There's only one game per night. I think it's
Yeah,
Thursday.
yeah.
It's Thursday through to Sunday or Wednesday through to Saturday.
Wednesday, Saturday. Yeah,
Yeah, and the final I think is a Sunday. I want to
it
say
is a
from
Sunday.
from memory.
It is. Yeah.
Anyway, if you're not happy with no pricing in your game, and I know some people are not going to like that format, there is a different version of the game you can play, Lauren. Yeah.
Yes. So it's called Fantasy Euro, Women's Euro, and it's run by the same people who ran the Fantasy WSL game. Now, some people may have played that Fantasy WSL game and know that they, had a few technical issues, should we say, during the season. But everything I've seen so far, the game seems to be running well. And it's very similar to the WSL game. So you've got £100 million budget to spend. In terms of points, it's very similar to FPL, easy to follow in that sense. You don't get a wild card, but if your team is eliminated, you get a free transfer to remove players. So essentially, you get a free hit.
You've never got to worry about
Um,
your player going out, basically.
exactly.
Okay.
The only kind of difference tactically in this game is you have visionary points. So if a player has less than 2% ownership in the previous round, they gain an extra 3 points if they score anything above appearance points in that next round. So there are a few players that I've had a look at the ownership, and this is obviously subject to change. There are a couple of players quite close to the tipping point. So Arnaudottir for Iceland. Lacroix France is a really interesting one because she's 5.5 million, and I'd probably be putting that on the bench for the first game, obviously against England. But you've then got Netherlands and Wales, or Wales and Netherlands. She's walking into that Welsh game with those bonus points, and you would expect them to keep a clean sheet there. So that's what I'm possibly looking at. I don't have her in my squad at the moment, but I do have the money to get her and just sit her on the bench, and you're probably not losing anything there. You've got Harbecken from Norway, 5 million, Lundqvist from Sweden, 6 million, Anson, 6.5 million. So those are obviously slightly bigger gambles. But I think Swedish defence, unless you need to start a Swedish defender in the first game, or you could, to be honest, you could still start them, but that might be a nice added bonus for the second game. Potential Swedish gem is Holmberg, 4 million. Now her ownership is currently 1.95%, so that may tip over before the deadline tomorrow.
You've just ruined it for everyone, haven't you?
Yeah, no one pick her. Sorry. But so, I mean, there is a risk here because she might not start, so maybe definitely don't pick her. She did start the warm-up game, and everything I've read from Swedish fans on X seem to suggest that they think she might start. She's quite young. That was only her second start the other day for Sweden, so obviously it is a risk, but she's only 4 million, and worst case, you just stick her on the bench. You've then got Tulings for Belgium, who is a starter. She's only 4 million, and she's 1.28%.
And she's a midfielder, right? 4 million.
She's midfielder. She's
cheap.
Some assists, and I think she'll be one that you'll want to save for match day 3 when they play against Portugal. You're not going to start her against Spain, obviously, but if you keep her if you've got that spot on the bench for her, you could start her against Italy. That's not an issue. But in terms of getting that visionary bonus, you're sort of looking at match day 3. I guess the risk there is if she gains. I was going to say if she gains popularity between match day 1 and match day 2, but who's going to invest in her when they're playing Spain? So
yeah, no, it won't.
And then the last visionary one that I've seen is Lionesses from Sweden, who will only play if Rolfo is not fit. She's only 4.5 million, which is the cheapest of the starting players. There are a couple of 4 million forwards in the game, but they're not worth investing in. She's only 0.55%, so she'll definitely go in as a visionary. And there is a very strong chance that she is going to start because Rolfo is not thought to be fit enough yet. I guess the question mark then is, will she start the second game? If she does start the second game, then that's a great option because obviously they're not playing Germany until the last game. I think the best thing to say though is there are so many enablers across the game. So I'm sure you can see on that document, James, that I've got. I apologise, people at home won't be able to see it, but there's a huge long list of defenders, midfielders, and forwards who are all 4 million or 4.5 million. So I'll just briefly run through. There are 3 goalkeepers that we are predicting are number ones, and Falk for Sweden is 4 million. She's in my team. She'll be starting the first 2 games. Korpela for Finland, which Finland are obviously the weaker team in the group. Maybe you might not be as confident going there. And so Peng of Switzerland is also 4 million. You can get.
Isn't that what the cool kids say? Peng.
Yeah, it's just her nickname. Yes, that's it.
Is she though?
We'll find out. 8 million for 2 starting goalkeepers. You can't ask more than that, can you? German gem is Knack. So as I said earlier, when we were talking about the groups, she's only recently come kind of back into the Germany squad, but she has been starting consistently. She's only 4.5 million, so that is a really cheap way into the German defence. Arnaudottir of Iceland, 4.5 million for their easier fixtures. Maren Mjeld is only 4 million. She will start at the back for Norway. I've obviously already spoken about Holmberg. You've got Filtons for Belgium, 4 million. Reeson will be starting, we predict, for Switzerland. Seeker, 4 million for Portugal. Dudek, not Jersey, 4 million for Poland. She's a centre back.
She got wobbly knees.
Yeah, exactly. Siren for Finland. Some great names here. And then you get into the midfielders. So the really interesting ones for me, I'm not going to start with these two players, but I might definitely keep an eye on Mallard. So Melvin Mallard, plays for Man United. She's only 4 million, and she's French. She scored 3 goals in their pre-tournament friendly. Now I don't think she's going to start, but as an option, as a French player, I think when I'm looking at my squad here and I'm looking at the transfers that I'm going to make, you get 2 transfers between match days. There are some players in my starting squad at the moment. So if I just go through it, Olga Carmona for Spain. There's a bit of a flip for me whether I choose Olga, who is 6 million, or Battier, who is 7 million. Ona Battier is more likely to pick up assists, but that 1 million saving has allowed me to do other things in the squad. Claudia Pina, Mariona Caldente, Buell, and Schuler, Spanish and German players, essentially are going to stay in my squad unless they get injured. So what I've now got is I've got Gorelli up front, who is 5 million, and Miedemar, who is 7 million. And they are quite a bit cheaper. So I'm going to be quite limited in terms of funds of where can I actually move those players that I want to transfer. So Mallard could be an interesting way into the French team. You could get Mallard in and start her against Wales and hope that she comes on and sort of does something. I think there is a potential that if she does well as a sub, that she could sort of break into the team. But France do have a lot of attacking talent. Summonen for Finland is 4.5 million. She's on penalty. She plays Spurs. She's scored a couple of penalties for Spurs this season. I've already spoken about Yanaji. Another interesting option for France is Matteo. So she is top goal scorer in Ligue 1 this season. She's only 4.5 million. Again, she's probably not a starting player right now, but she could, easily come on and have an impact.
I suppose with the French players, you might want to get an idea from the first game and then attack them for transfers in the second game. Yeah.
And I think if you're comfortable with a player not starting, but coming on against Wales, for example, and possibly having an impact, then they're still going to pick up those points. It's the same for Cersei. So Cersei for Germany scored 16 goals in the Bundesliga, which was the second top goal scorer. She's only 5 million. I think personally for Germany, Schuler, Buell, and Knack. I don't. If you're trying to save money with Schuler, I think fine, go with Cersei. But my personal opinion on Spain and Germany is just choose 3 of their best players, get them in your squad, and keep them there if you can.
Yeah, my little observation on this format would be certainly the way the tournament's going to go, like premiums really from Spain, I think.
Yeah.
The way you've shaped this as well shows actually probably the flip of what I said about the Euro game is there's so many good enablers here available from the likes of Sweden and Germany who say don't play each other till like match day 3. And even someone like, someone like Norway could comfortably win Group A, have a quarterfinal that's even winnable, maybe even get to a semi-final. They've got a couple in there, for example. So I'd probably be really looking to get as many good enablers in as possible. Obviously, if you've got the visionary bonus, that's great as well. And really kind of not cut corners in terms of getting like the best Spanish assets first and foremost from the premiums. Who's the most expensive player?
Buell is 11. Bonmatti's 11.
So she's not worth risking from the start.
Pahor is the most expensive, 11.5 million, but no one is paying 11.5 million for a player that is playing in a rubbish team. I think that it's crazy. I mean, maybe
that's because of reputation at Barcelona rather than the team that she's playing for in this tournament.
Yeah, I mean the pricing of the strikers is quite annoying, really. You've got there's players from teams like Belgium who would have been interesting, like Vuller. She's really good. but she's 10.5 million, and I think that's too much to pay for a Belgian striker. Whereas if she's a little bit cheaper, you might maybe look at her. Um, there's obviously you've got to have a consideration for English players and French players. I mean, I'm starting with none, and I think that's okay because it is such a hard group. But my attention for the second game week is definitely going to be what French players can I get in, and then for the final game week, what English players can I get in. I think
Yeah,
from an England perspective, um, Russo's 9 million. So if you can stretch to her, then obviously
feels like a tough group though,
she's
doesn't it? Like I don't see them getting like 10 goals
yeah,
in the group, like five or so
no.
probably.
Georgia Stanway's only 8 million, and she's the penalty taker. So
Yeah,
she's
it's probably a
probably
better
the best
pickup.
asset. Just going back to Norway, Graham Hansen plays for Barcelona. She's a great player. She's only 7.5 million in the midfield, so that's probably the
Yeah, I
best.
think
And then we
if you can, like I
there.
said, if you can attack, definitely you want the best of Spain, and don't be
Yeah,
frightened to attack those teams in Group A where it could be quite open, and maybe even like a Norway or an Iceland would even be capable of maybe even winning a quarter final against perhaps a secondary team from Spain's group, possibly. So yeah, that's the way
yeah.
I'd look at doing that. And obviously, the more visionaries you get in and the more enablers you get in, it's going to probably make the game more fun, I should imagine as well.
Yeah, I
Well,
imagine Visionaries will obviously fizzle out the later into the tournament because obviously
yeah, I mean that's difficult at under 5%. Under 10%, you can get under 5% is really, really
it's two
tough.
percent, 2%.
2%, is it?
Yeah, yeah,
Blind me. I mean, I would
yeah,
attack some stuff at the start then and maybe not focus
yeah,
on that too much moving forward. So obviously as well,
yeah.
you're whittling down teams wherever you move on. It's just surely it's just got
Exactly.
to get tougher and tougher once you hit the knockout stage. So, but I'd attack a few
Yeah.
from the start, and I think particularly, yeah, sort of Germany and Sweden ones and those from Group A, I think.
Hmm.
Lauren, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, my friend. Anything you want to plug before we finish up?
Nope, just everyone get your England shirts on. Get supporting 8 p.m. on Saturday, opener against France. And yeah, it's coming home for
It might
everybody.
be as tough as it gets. I wish you safe travels to Switzerland, mate. Don't come back without that trophy. And don't go at all if we go out in the group stage. No, definitely enjoy yourself out there, mate. It should be a good tournament. I don't. It's not going to be excessively hot like we've seen in some of the stuff in America, I presume. I mean, it's crazy hot here in the UK at the moment. Although that is going to calm down a little bit from tomorrow.
Yeah, I think I looked at the forecast and it's sort of 30 degrees at the moment. I'm
Wow.
camping for a week between the quarterfinal and the final. That week I'm camping, so my tent's gonna be a bit hot, I think. But we've
Camping
got a
in
swimming pool.
Switzerland, it's full of ski
Yeah.
slopes and stuff, isn't it?
We are on a lake. Lots of lakes in Switzerland.
Nice. I
Mm.
wish you good luck, mate. Enjoy yourself. Come on the Lionesses. Bring it home. Thanks very much, Lauren. I'll be back with some Club World Cup chat tomorrow. Be nice to each other, everyone. Cue music, please, man child.